So the Federal Reserve cuts interest rates by 50 basis points on Wednesday, and there's been a lot of volatile price action. In this video, we're going to be digesting that price action and taking a look on the charts and using some historical data to figure out where we could be heading next. So let's get into it. So starting off with the FOMC meeting itself, as we know, 50 basis points interest rate cut by the Fed on Wednesday. Leading up to it about a month ago, it was a 70-30 chance of a 25 basis point cut over a 50. And then as the weeks went on, the odds changed in favor of a 50 basis point rate cut, as we covered in videos leading up to it. So I personally thought a 50 basis point cut was going to be too much too soon, and it was going to spook the markets a little bit. But as we can see, we've had nothing but green since Wednesday. So the market's clearly liking it. There was a lot of volatility, obviously, on the day, which I'll go and show you once we get back on the charts. But yeah, coming out of it pretty strong. However, there is some historical data to be cautious of, which I'll go over a little bit later on. So as I say, 50 basis point cut. And then the other key takeaway from this article here from JP Morgan is that we're going to have another 2 additional rate cuts in 2024, and then the rates are expected to continue into 2025. So you would think and hope that that is going to be bullish. However, as I say, there is some previous data, historical data, that says it might not be as bullish as we hope, but we'll just have to wait and see. Let's get quickly back to the charts and go over what has happened. So if we go right back down to the low timeframes and discuss what happened on the day. So here we are on Wednesday around 6-7 o'clock. So this is Bitcoin. We had a spike, so we started off around 60k, spiked up to around 61.2 or 3, then dumped back down to 59.5, and then set off on a huge rally from about 8 o'clock onwards. And as you can see, we haven't really stopped. Had a little bit of a pullback last night, right above that, and we're having, you could argue, we're having a little bit of a double top here on the 1 hour. Nothing too scary just yet. Obviously, it's Friday, going into the traditional market weekly close, Bitcoin weekly close on Sunday. So very interesting times over the next couple of days. Just quickly show you the volatile price action on the S&P and gold as well, very similar. Where were we? So we were around here Monday, so Wednesday, oh, of course it was, yeah, these big red candles here. So pumped into the announcement, as you can see, and then had a big dump, well, bit of a pullback really, below where we started down to, so we went up to around 5687 on the S&P, then down to 5619, and then obviously trading stopped, and then we gapped up in the following morning. So if we go to S&P futures, this was the price action here, big spike up to from 5700 up to 5755, dropped down to 5675, and then went on a rally ever since. And then gold as well, very volatile indeed. So we started off around just before the announcement 2575, spiked up to 2600, all the way down to 2550, and then have been rallying ever since. That was a pretty big swing on gold from the top down to the bottom, about 2%, which is a pretty big swing for gold. So yeah, lots of volatile price action. So let's get back to some more important time frames. So let's take a look from the top down. Let's go for the weekly time frame on Bitcoin. And as I've talked about many times, this really important level hit 60k, big psychological level, been big support and resistance in the past. It's where the moving average 21 is, where rejected previously. So also you could argue around the RSI 50 as well. So it's a big level. We've managed to get above it. Now can we stay above it going into that weekly close, as I say, on Sunday? I think if we manage to close above 60k, really bullish, and then any pullback into 60k should be a really good buying opportunity. And then your invalidation is really simple. If we then close back below 60k, you know, risk off and look for lower opportunities. But I think we may well be in a situation where, for the time being, the low was put in at around 49k. We've then made a higher low a couple of weeks ago at the beginning of September, around 53, and now we're starting to form a bit of an uptrend. We've got a bit of resistance here, obviously, around 64k, the previous swing high from the middle to late August. Get above that, and we should be fine. But as I say, if we get a little pullback from here down into 60k after a decent weekly close, then I think that would be a really good opportunity to get long. If we go into the daily time frame and zoom in, so you can see we've made this really nice uptrend. So we put in a low down here at around 53k, put in a high around 60.5k, pull back into a higher low down here at 57. So there's your low, there's your high, there's your higher low, and now we're making a higher high up here around 64k. In terms of local resistance, we've got a daily FVG here at around 63.4k, and as I say, that previous swing high in around 64k as well that we saw on the weekly, you can now see on the daily as well, a bit of a top there. So potential for a bit of resistance here, pull back into 60k would look pretty good. Ethereum has been absolutely flying over the past couple of days. It's actually reacted better to the announcement than BTC. On the weekly, not really too much to talk about. Excuse these little marks on the chart. You'll see them as we go lower into the time frames. But on the weekly time frame, you can see not really too much to talk about in terms of levels of resistance and support. It's kind of in the middle of nowhere. But if we go into the daily, a little bit of a clearer picture. So I talked about this on our Learning Crypto Discord in the traders chat. Go check out our website if you want more information on that. But you can see we were coming into an important level here. So we had the daily level of 2422, RSI 50 as resistance. And this was the important level we needed to break to continue this uptrend. So similar to what BTC has done, we've put in a low here around 2140, put in the higher low formed at around 2177, and then we needed to break above this 2422 level to make a higher high, which as you can see we have done. In terms of local resistance, similar to BTC, we have got these swing highs from back towards the end of August, start of September, and a daily FVG as well, daily fair value gap. So potential again for a bit of resistance here, local resistance, pull back into this level, maybe just above 2422, wherever the daily moving average 21 is, and then that could be a really good opportunity to get long as well. Moving on then to some Bitcoin dominance. If we go on to the monthly time frame, so we talked about this, I think it was a week or two ago. BTC looking to break out of this important level of 57%. If it breaks above this, then could well see it rally up to 64%, which would obviously be pretty devastating for altcoins. However, we have seen altcoins do very well over the last couple of days, which we'll go over in a second. So it's come down a little bit from where it was a few days ago. As you can see, rolled over a little bit, as I say, from Wednesday. We then take a look at the ETH-BTC chart. On the monthly, we are sat on a very important level of support here at 0.04. You can see it's been a big level of previous resistance in the past. So if we can hold this level, ETH and Bitcoin dominance can get back below that resistance level around 57%. There's a good chance we could see a nice little rally in altcoins. And as I say, ETH has performed better than BTC over the last couple of days, which can be seen obviously in the ETH-BTC chart on the daily time frame. So as I talked about last week, we've not had a daily close above the moving average 21 on ETH-BTC for a very long time. So it would be nice to see if we could finally get that flipped and then start making some headway on the higher time frames as well. Still very early to say, but good signs so far. Total 2, if we take a look at the weekly, again, talked about this a number of times. I warned about the danger altcoins were in when we had this bearish retest of 940 billion, weekly moving average 21 and RSI 50. We rejected off that. We've now found some support, had a little bounce, excuse me, but now going into obviously that resistance area again. So hopefully we can push a weekly candle above 940 billion, get a nice strong weekly close above that, above the weekly moving average 21, above the RSI 50, and things will start looking a lot better indeed. Moving on then to the S&P, and we did make new all-time highs on Wednesday, as you can see. If we go down to the daily, or not on Wednesday, on Thursday when we opened, a nice strong reaction from those rate cuts. And if we take a look at the dollar as well, the DXY, it is melting, which is what you want to see for risk assets to do well. However, word of caution is we are coming down into this key level of 99.612. You can see this has been a huge level in the past. We bounced off it pretty strongly back in July of 2023 as well. So things could go well for a little while longer before a bit of a bounce on the dollar and risk assets might pull back a little bit. So speaking, or in fact, before we move on to that, just quickly show you some altcoins that have been doing very well recently. So if we go to AVAX on the daily, you can see nice strong rally from the FOMC, up 20%. I think Solana is up the same as well. So the past couple of days, yeah, up another 17-18%. So all coins doing really well. fingers crossed we can see more strength in ETH BTC total 2 chart and weakness in the Bitcoin dominance chart. Now, going back to what I was just saying about the S&P, potentially having a little bit of a pullback if the dollar bounces. So as I say, it's all been looking pretty good so far on the reaction to the Federal Reserve rate cuts. However, as we've talked about over the past couple of weeks, this is what has happened the last 4 times, or the last 4 rate cut cycles we've had. So in 1981, 1990, 2000 and 2007, these were the previous rate cuts and rate cut cycles. And you can see that what's happened every time is this is the S&P. We've had a rally followed by a big sell-off up to around 50%, which was the biggest one. So that's overlaid onto the current chart. So a rally up to around 6,000 on the S&P. And if we zoom in onto cycles that have started with, I should have mentioned at the start, these tweets are from a guy called Brett_ETH. Mentioned him in videos previously, but very good Twitter account to follow, or X account to follow. Obviously, as you can see, very good with historical data and TradFi, etc. So yeah, give him a follow using his chart. So back to what I was saying, cycles have started with a 50 basis point cut. You can see they've not done too well in the past. So this was obviously 2001, this was 2007, both had a 50+% decline and then a 23% decline on the COVID rate cuts as well. And then if we zoom in, what we were saying before about the S&P having a nice little bounce on the announcement of the cut, you can see in January 2001 we had an 8.5% jump, September 2007 a 7% rally, and then if that were to happen today, a 7% rally from the rate cut would take us up to that 6,000 point mark. So is that where we're heading before a pullback? That will be a huge level of resistance, in my personal opinion. Probably might get front run a little bit. 6,000, obviously a huge psychological number. And as I say, it's got that historical relevance of where things have pulled back in previous rate cut cycles before. And then quickly move on to BTC again. I've shown this chart before on previous videos. This is how Bitcoin has reacted to the rate cuts that it has experienced. It's only experienced the ones that happened in COVID 2020. But as I said, so this chart is obviously a few weeks old now. This was a couple of weeks ago, but you can see the price action pretty similar in 2020 to how it was going into these rate cuts as well. And as you can see, on that first rate cut, positive reaction from BTC, and then the following weeks we saw a big pullback up to around 40% as the rate cuts came in, as you can see. And then finally we had these 2 rate cuts during COVID in 2020, but of course that's a bit of a black swan. You know, you could probably ignore that, but the ones to really focus on is what happened with these rate cuts here in 2019. And as I say, nice rally off the first rate cut and then a decline going into the next 2 rate cuts. So is that how the rest of the year is going to go? As I say, we've got another 2 rate cuts coming towards the end of this year. Are we seeing the rally off of the first one and then going into a decline later in the year, which would go against the seasonality? Of course, Q4 being a very good, or being Bitcoin's best quarter of the year historically. So be very interesting to find out and see how things go. So drop in the comments below what you think is going to happen with the rest of the year going into Q4 and Q1 of next year. Let us know what you think the effects the rate cuts are going to have. Like the video if you enjoyed the content. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video.